I saw the impact it had. Y'all, it was huge. It really changed everything for us. Good morning. Welcome to my channel where we break down some of the challenges we face in the classroom, especially when it comes to technology. If you clicked on this video, then you're probably considering using templates to guide your teachers through Tech PD. My example will include an 8th grade example and a 2nd and 3rd grade example, but I will have additional samples and guides in the description linked below, but I'm only going to show a couple in the video. So as you know, digital activities and virtual learning are becoming more and more mainstream. And maybe you're absolutely loving the idea of coaching technology with your teachers, or maybe you're just not that comfortable with it yet. Either way, I'm going to share some advice with you on how to effectively lead your technology PD in a way that will reach your teachers of different tech comfort levels. So I will have linked in the description below a step-by-step guide so that you can print it out after you watch the video. There will be a link to sample templates, sample guides to get you started right away with your teachers, and there will be timestamps in the description. So if you're looking for something specific, just scroll down, click on the timestamp that you need. So let's get started. Using templates with my teachers was simply a game changer for me. They truly allowed me to zero in on my core objectives in a way that was effective for both my not so tech savvy teachers and my tech savvy teachers. So for example, if you're trying to teach how to create a sorting activity in Google Slides, you can give your teachers a template so they can jump right to creating the sorting part instead of spending so much time on things that have to be done leading up to it, like the titles and formatting the fonts and the backgrounds and those things. So while those things are important, they tend to make these tech learning days frustrating to those who are not comfortable with technology. Before I started with the templates, I felt my teachers who were uncomfortable with technology were getting behind and feeling overwhelmed during these tech PD days. Once teachers feel like they're behind and overwhelmed, it's very difficult to recover, and unfortunately, it sets the tone for your PD, and that is not the tone that you want to set for your PD. So providing templates and using like a breakout style PD can help to overcome some of those challenges while still accommodating your tech savvy teachers. So I think a huge obstacle that we as technology coaches face is you're not working one-on-one or even with a small group of teachers. You're working with a group of teachers usually based on planning time. So that could be grade level or content. So you're probably going to have teachers of mixed tech ability or tech comfort level. You're going to have some who are tech resistant, some who are tech savvy, and they're just going to all be mixed in together. So I think using these templates in a breakout style is going to help solve that problem. Now, we called it a breakout style PD because I would give little directions before teachers partnered up and just began creating. And I will be honest, I didn't start out this way. This strategy evolved throughout the course of a year once I kind of figured out what I was doing. This was my first year coaching with technology, so I was learning, the teachers were learning. So this strategy developed over time, so I'm giving you the end result tips after the trial and errors. So I would give little directions first, and then the teachers would be given like a goal activity, so they know like what they're trying to create. And then I would go over my objectives. So by the end of this, I want you to be able to do this skill and that skill. I'd give them printed guides and then just let them create. Once they finished and turned in their work, they were dismissed. So this was really good for my tech savvy teachers. They were much more involved because I was still able to give them those little bitty nuggets of information that they didn't know before I came in there, but they weren't like stuck waiting on everyone else to finish. And I also feel like this had a positive effect on my not so tech savvy teachers. They just seemed more relaxed when they didn't feel rushed and they didn't feel like they were wasting somebody else's time. Plus, it allowed me, like once some of the tech savvier people were dismissed and left, I was able to get some more one-on-one time with the teachers who were not really comfortable, and they were able to ask a little more questions. It was a little bit more relaxed because it just instantly became a smaller group. So for us, for my district, this strategy was successful. So let me show you some examples of the templates and the guides that we used. So let's start with an 8th grade social studies template. Here are my objectives for this particular tech PD. So I have a pretty long list of objectives here. We have the drag and drop /sorting /map activity. The skills for those are the same. Correct or incorrect, sequencing, word bank, video, and response. Now this is a long list of objectives because we worked our way up to this. Know your teachers. If they as a group are not ready for this many objectives, just pick 1 or 2. And then I have the next slide is their sample. So these are like the end goals or what they're trying to create. And I was doing 7th and 8th grade in the same planning period. So I had 1 sample for 8th grade and 1 sample for 7th grade. So we're in Georgia. So 8th grade is Georgia Studies. So we were doing juvenile justice, and 7th grade was Southern and Eastern Asia geography activities. So this is a slide that I had displayed throughout the breakout. So what would happen is I would give them the objectives, go over the sample of what it should look like, pass out their packets, which had their step-by-step guides, and then I would leave this slide displayed. So the guidelines is they were to partner up, the first group to finish correctly gets a special prize, and then you're dismissed when you're finished. And then I have these keyboard shortcuts. So I have a list of 4 here, and I would challenge them to use at least one of these. So I'm not asking those, especially those who are not comfortable with technology, to use every single one of these, but at least pick one or one that you're the least familiar with and try to use it during the activity. Now, I will say with these keyboard shortcuts, make sure that they're relevant. So don't just throw random keyboard shortcuts on here. Think of things that they actually would need or that would actually help their efficiency when they're creating this template. So they would get this printed. So I have this digitally here to show you, but I would provide this as a printed packet. These are their how-tos or their tasks for their breakout. So first they're going to go to this link for their template. They're going to make a copy, which now I would give a link to a forced copy and skip this. But this was from several years ago. So anyways, I would have the link for them to go for their template, which I'll show you in a second. And then I have directions. So on slide 3, they need to enter the prompts, insert type here placeholders, and then I tell them how to do those. I also was very specific. As you can see, I have the font, the size, and all the formatting needed. And y'all, I'm really not that picky. I really don't care what they choose as their font. However, my teachers needed those very specific directions. You get some teachers who are fixated on, well, I don't know what font to use, and they get incredibly stressed, and the whole thing is just frustrating. So I gave them all this information, but if I'm checking their work and they don't have Bubblegum Sans as their font, I really don't care. So just keep that in mind. So this looks incredibly intense, and it is intense, but this was the most effective way that I found. So again, this is their tasks packet. I list their tasks, how to accomplish these tasks, and then I also at the bottom provide images of what their end result should look like. So this is when they're finished, this is what slide 3 should look like. This is what slide 4 should look like. This is what slide 5 should look like, and so on, so that they know what they're trying to create based on the template I'm giving them. So they would get this packet, get their template, and start creating. Here is the template. So this template has a lot that's already created for teachers for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to expose teachers to an interactive lesson with a variety of activities. So I'll scroll through these so you can see the different types of activities that we're including in my template. Two, I wanted to focus on my learning objectives. My learning objectives do not require them to write an entire passage or to even copy and paste one. So I'm going to do that part for them. They must start by inserting the placeholders here for students to type their answers. Also, my learning objectives do not include finding a background or formatting these title fonts. So I did that for them. I want them to spend their time with me wisely. So the last thing that I want to do is to waste their time trying to copy how I did this. This is an example of a sorting activity template. On this slide, all teachers were required to do is create the items to be sorted and link in a hint here. So the directions for how to do this were located on their printed packet. So if I come back here to the printed packet and go up to slide 4, this is what it should look like in the end. It should have all of the things they have to sort. And slide 4 right here are the directions and the hint that they need to link in. So that's how they know what to do with this template. They come here and look slide 4, insert unruly and delinquent columns and answer choices. They're going to insert the shapes and link in their hint. With an activity like this, I would typically include a completed version of the activity to give to the teachers afterwards. So I would give them an activity that already has all of these things done in it. And I would email this to them when I emailed them after the PD with the notes and all of the things. So I really tried to be aware of the activities that the teachers were teaching at the time, and I tried to create activities that reflected that. At this point in the year, my 8th grade social studies teachers were working on juvenile justice, on the juvenile justice system that was coming up soon. So I tried to create an activity that reflected that. In this same PD, I also worked with 7th grade teachers, and coming up for them was Southern and Eastern Asia geography. So this is a lot of work, and I understand this is a lot of work to really be so, narrow with your topics, but what you can do is you can rotate. So if you don't have time to make one for 7th grade and one for 8th grade, this week or this month, do one for 7th grade, and next month, do one for 8th grade. And you can also rotate content. So I rotated contents. I tried to do as best I could a 7th grade and an 8th grade version of the different content. So in this case, we were doing social studies. At my school that I was working with, most of the social studies teachers taught other content. So they preferred me to create social studies activities because they typically, on one team, I would have a science and social studies teacher, a math and social studies, ELA and social studies. So they all three taught social studies plus their other content. So I focused more heavily on social studies, but you could also do a math and an ELA. Or you could do math one week, ELA next week, science one week, social studies next week, however you want to rotate those. But it really means a lot to the teachers that you are trying to be relevant for them. So this was one example, and it's pretty complex. So now I'm going to take you through an example of the lower grades. This is a template we used for 2nd and 3rd grade teachers to create their own math and literacy printables. As you can see, this looks very different from our other example because its learning objectives and the needs of the teachers are very different. In both slides of this template, the teachers are given a big head start. They're basically just completing the pattern that I set up for them using their guide. This is the guide for teachers to use while they're working with their template. As you can see, it has every single detail written out. And this, honestly, is a ton of work for me. However, It is so worth it. Teachers were so much more comfortable and engaged when they had these printed guides. Now, something that I want to point out to you, in this guide in particular, I started it from scratch. However, you can see that we have the template here. So I wanted to make sure that my teachers would be able to start this from scratch if they wanted to. When I'm implementing this with the template, I would say, okay, guys, you guys are starting at step 9. I've already done steps 1 through 8 for you in your template. When you're looking at your guide, you're going to start with step 9 where they're inserting the empty hearts, and then they're layering those text boxes on top of them. So that's what I mean by having the step-by-step guides. And there's also a picture of the finished product. And I included how to print their printable. So again, these are 2 very different templates, but they both serve different purposes when you're using these with your teachers. Now remember, in the description box, I have several examples of a ton of different types of templates. So if these aren't really what you're looking for, still make sure you go and check out the other templates that I provided. There might be something more along what you're looking for in those because they're all very, very different. Using templates in Technology PD can be a major step towards meeting the needs of your teachers, no matter where they fall in their technology comfort level. So I have a few tips for you for when you're implementing these strategies. Tip number 1, have a clear objective. So when you're creating your template and your PD for that matter, make sure that you have a clear objective in mind. So you're thinking about what skills are you really wanting your teachers to be able to do when they leave today. If you're dealing with technology, like we had a big push on creating interactive activities in Google Slides. So that's where I based my objectives and my skills that I wanted them to learn. But it was different for the grade level. And it was different for the grade level because of their needs and where they were as far as technology. So I would go to one school, and our pre-K and kindergarten teachers, our objective was to insert and work with tables in Google Docs. They were doing printables. That was their objective. So my template and guides were for that. It was for the objective of inserting a table and working with the tables. Now, my objectives for my 8th grade social studies teachers were creating sorting and sequencing activities. So I wanted them to be able to, on their own, create a sorting activity in Google Slides and create a sequencing activity on Google Slides. So think about your objectives as the skill that you're wanting them to do, and then what you want it to look like when they're accomplishing that skill. So for example, my skill for my 8th grade teachers is to the sequencing activity. Well, I want them to create an interactive activity on Google Slides. So you're kind of thinking about the skill and then how is that relevant to them? What do you want to see them using it with afterwards? So tip number 1, clear objectives. Tip number 2, take care of the background work when you're working with your templates. So the whole point of using templates is so that you can really zero in on your objectives. So make sure that your template takes care of all of that background work. So if you're teaching how to insert text placeholders for students to type their answers in a Google Slide activity, go ahead and put a sample passage and prompts so that your teachers don't have to worry about that. You don't want your teachers wasting 10 minutes out of their 30 minutes with you trying to find a background they like or a sample passage to just put in place for their demo. So you want to, when you're creating your template, take care of all of that background stuff so they don't get distracted, and you want to take value of their time. Tip number 3, provide tasks in the form of printed guides. I'll be honest, when I first started, I did not provide step-by-step guides, and I really didn't want to. I modeled how to do whatever it was we were doing. We practiced it, They took notes. That was it. I sent them video tutorials even, but I got request after request for printed step-by-step guides. So I finally decided to make one, and it was a ton of work. I was like, no way am I doing this for each and every one. It takes way too long. It's not worth it. It takes me forever to type out those step-by-step guides. It's not easy and it's not fast. But at the next PD, I saw the impact it had. Y'all, it was huge. It really changed everything for us. So not only were they great for those teachers who just want to keep a hard copy for their notes for later reference, that sort of a thing, but what it did for us is it allowed us to shift towards a more independent style PD, which in turn was much more successful than what we were doing before. With the guides, teachers were able to be more independent. They were able to work at their own pace. And this strategy was well received by teachers at all tech comfort levels. You know, this was great for our teachers who aren't comfortable because they have that guide that has every single step written out for them. So they can go as slow as they want to. They don't have to worry about keeping up with what Judy's doing next to them, who, you know, is Google Trainer certified. And Judy, who's Google Trainer certified, she doesn't even have to use the guide. She just uses it as tasks and the pictures, and she can kind of create it on her own. She'll have more time to explore and do some other things. So printable guides really are important, and I know they take forever and it's not fun. It's very tedious and frustrating. However, I have some that I've already created that I'm sharing with you, so you can either be inspired or make some edits, make some tweaks, use it, whatever you need to do. I'm going to give you some that I made to get you started. Okay, tip number 4, provide all the necessary elements. This just means to try to eliminate that wasted time that teachers will spend searching for something. In my case in particular, especially with the lower grades, it was searching for clip art. So for example, I had first grade teachers create an interactive number bonds activity with a farm theme. So I went ahead and before the PD, created a folder with all kinds of farm clip art in it. Then I just shared the folder with them. So now when we're in the PD and we only have like 15 or 20 minutes, they're searching in that folder for the clip art instead of like Google searching it, because Google searching farm clip art is not my objective. My objective is the number bonds activity and how to put those movable pieces into the Google Slides. My objective is not, can Judy search on Google to find a cow clip art? Yes, she can probably do that. So by the time everyone gets settled in and logged in, especially for those lower grades, you know, you really only have 20, 25, even maybe 15 minutes depending on the day to get everything done. So just try to include all of the necessary elements that they'll need so that you and your teachers can focus on the skill objective. Okay, last tip number 5. Each time your teachers come to a tech PD, challenge them to use keyboard shortcuts. This will help increase their efficiency and their comfort level. The key to this is to ask them to use a specific shortcut for each activity that you're doing. This will help them practice it in a relevant setting. For example, the shortcut for copy and paste might be more relevant than the shortcut for print. So when you're giving your overview of the template, share your shortcut challenge and demonstrate how it works. And I would try to give them a few options and tell them to try at least 1 or 2. So for example, this is great if you have mixed comfort levels with technology. Try to, include 4 different keyboard shortcuts that will probably be useful for this activity, and challenge them to pick at least 1 from that list that they've never used before. Most of the time I was able to catch the attention of my tech savvier teachers with this strategy because, you know, they knew the common ones, but I would try to like sneak in some that weren't quite as common that would catch them off guard, and they would get pretty excited. You know, they're still learning something new through those keyboard shortcuts. But anyways, regardless of the comfort level, try to at least challenge them to use 1 or 2 new keyboard shortcuts. Give them an option if you feel like they need it. If you feel like they don't need options, then just give them the ones they need. Templates are great for so many reasons, and they can be used with teachers of all comfort levels with technology. So remember, in the description below, I have links to sample templates and guides. So be sure to explore those to get inspiration, or you can make a copy and just go ahead and use them with your teachers. Now, I want to hear from you. What ideas or tips for templates do you have? Leave that in the comments below, or post them on Instagram and tag me at Sarah Miller Tech. I would love to hear from you. See you next time.